All right. Hi, this is Kathy from Fabric Bash and
Angela from Waggle.
And we're here for Behind the Quilt. And today we have a very special guest, Robbi Eklow from Omaha, Nebraska. We're super excited. I love when she comes in our store. We're super excited. I drop everything and go talk to Robbi when she comes in the store. So we just want to talk about everything behind the quilt. We're just going to let you talk, Robbi. I think that's like the best thing. I started coming up with an agenda. And then I sat there and I'm like, you know what? She hung up on me when we put her on hold. I don't think she's going to follow the agenda. I love it. I love it. I think it's awesome.
Oh, well, you should ask me a question to start.
Okay, well, first of all, we're in your beautiful studio.
Oh,
and
yes.
Let's talk about your beautiful and amazing studio. And we'll get to put some pictures up as we go along as well.
Okay, so this is the building that we're in is called the Hot Shops, and it is not a shopping center, and there aren't really shops here. It's studios, and it was, so 20 years ago, these three guys, a potter, a glass guy, and Les, who does, he does sculptures and all kinds of things. And if you drive around Omaha, like you'll see every once in a while, a big face made out of stuff that they punched wrenches out of.
Oh.
Like industrial waste.
Yes.
He makes these statues but anyway, so the three of them were working on some project, I think for a church. And they wanted to have a space where they could all be together and collaborate. So they started, this building had been abandoned, so they took the lower part of the building and it's called the Hot Shops there because there's a glass forge and a ceramic studio with a kiln, and then all his welding stuff. So that's the official Hot Shops part. And then they bought this building, which is a 4-story building, which used to be the Serta mattress factory.
Oh, okay, so that makes the idea for the big elevators.
Yeah, because that's a freight elevator.
Okay.
And then so we're in the 4-story building, and then the building behind us. See the fake window? Mm-hmm. I mean, that used to be a window, and it would go into the 3rd story, the 3-story part. So anyway, so it's been here for, I think, 21 years. And it's becoming a nonprofit, and so we teach a lot. And I've had various studios here, and the first
I was telling Angela how you had to move the long arm up and down the floors.
Yeah. So the first time, I used to live in Chicago, and I had my Millie in the basement of our house. And then when my husband wanted to move here because we have grandsons here, so we had to do something with the long arm because it didn't fit in our apartment. So I talked to Tim, and I got a studio here on the 2nd floor. And so somebody took apart the Millie and brought it here and put it together. And then, so that was my 2nd floor studio. And then I decided to move to the 3rd floor. And that's when I hired the guy who owned the business before you.
Don.
Yeah, Don came and taught me how to take it apart.
Perfect.
And then we put it up in because that won't fit in an elevator. It's got a 12-foot table, and the elevator, it doesn't fit. I did the math. Anyway, so we brought it upstairs, put it in my studio, and then I wanted to move it really quickly for the long story. But so my 2nd studio had doors that go like this. Mm-hmm. So I just rolled it out because mine's on casters.
Right.
And I put it in front of the other studio, and it wouldn't fit through the door because it was a regular door.
Okay. Oh.
So I left it there while I went and thought about it. And some guy came and said, "Your machine is blocking the whole hallway. Whatever that thing is, you have to move it." So we took it apart just enough to get the rail off, and then we moved it in. And, I have a funny story, and you can edit it out if you don't like it, but when I was trying to get the rail off, I forgot it was hand tightened, and I couldn't find an Allen wrench to loosen it. But Alex Anderson has this tool that you use for poking corners out or doing something. The handle of it is exactly the same size as this thing. And I was telling someone at the APQS booth in Houston one year, and she said, "Oh, that's just a hand thing." I don't need that. So, but it was fun because the guy that was helping me, Ahmad, we were looking for the Allen wrench for that because I thought I had one, and he finally said, "You know, if you had one, we would have found it because you're so organized." Because it doesn't look like it, but I keep all my thread in drawers, like all the yellows are in one place, and all the the colors,
right.
And so that's how I keep my tools too. So anyway, so we moved it. And then when I moved it down here, my friend Diane and I just took it apart and moved. So it's very easy to actually move a long arm.
Well, that's a great selling point for APQS, so that's awesome. Thank you, Robbi.
You're welcome.
Well, actually, the original videos of putting it together is Dawn putting it together herself, so that's kind of awesome, right?
Yeah, yeah. And we, the thing that I like about APQS is even if it is easy to take apart, it's still, you have to take it apart to get the machine off the frame.
Yep.
At least in my world. And, but I like if I have to call about something, that I can call and they'll just send me a part or instructions.
And now we're here, and
whatever.
Jake's here, which is really good.
Yeah, and Jake's great because I'm like, I glued this thing on my machine and he doesn't get upset. He's like, oh, okay.
So what got you into the whole quilting world, and when did you start doing this beautiful, amazing fabric stuff?
Oh, thanks. College, because I used to sew.
Okay.
In high school, because I'm only 5 feet tall, so I would sew a lot of my own clothes. And I was really bad at it. I had to hold my breath a lot because things didn't fit and I didn't know how to change it. But anyway, so I went to college at Purdue, and I'm an engineer, so I was in engineering. And in 1976, my best friend Lynn, her mother was a quilter. You'd be sorry you asked this. But anyway, her
okay.
grandmother was a quilter and made her a grandmother's flower garden. And Lynn had taught me how to sew.
Okay.
And so I started working on a drunkard's path that I stacked the layers up. This is 1976.
Okay.
The bicentennial. People were quilting again.
Yes.
So I stacked the layers up, and then I cut it with an electric scissors. You can tell this isn't going to end well.
Well, that was before rotary. We were using
Yeah,
rotary cutters
yeah.
way before rotary
Right.
cutters.
Yeah.
Or
And-
AccuQuilt or any of that stuff.
Yeah, it was me and scissors with a quarter-yard fabric I bought somewhere. So, and then I went to Purdue for engineering, and I took that with me, those parts, and then I lost it. They're in some box somewhere that Purdue lost in their storage thing, and then they called, like, 8 years later, they said, we found this box of stuff, and it's $70 to get it back, and because shipping, and I was
Right.
like, I don't care what's in there. So somewhere that quilt lives. And it's really, it's not a whole quilt, it's just like, black. Anyway, so that was that. And then we moved to Chicago. My husband and our families both living at the time.
Okay.
So we moved back. And so I decided to start quilting because there was a quilt shop in Evanston.
Okay.
And we had a polar vortex back then. And so during the week I would go to the quilt shop and buy fabric, and then in the weekend I was stuck at home because everything was frozen.
Yeah.
And that's when I started quilting with Beth do you know Beth Gutchin? Do you remember Beth Gutchin? Mm-hmm. Well, this was 1980. She
Okay.
and Jeff Gutchin had written a book about quilting. That was my first book. Which I have that book now, I think. Because I got rid of it, and then I bought it back on Amazon used. And I think it's the one that I had. Because it has notes and notebook paper, and the writing looks just like my handwriting. And I would have written on notebook paper, because I was just out of college. I would write like thank you notes on notebook paper with a pencil when I had a job interview. It was hard to get a job. But anyway, I decided, I just started designing quilts on a Commodore 64, and
That's going back over here to like Angela's background is computers,
Yeah.
so
That was my first computer too. So
was
yeah.
it really?
Oh yeah.
So
State of the art.
and you had to punch in the program. Oh, I had the tape.
The data set. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
So I was designing stuff.
Jake's over there going, "Oh my gosh!"
So hey, I wrote a checkbook program, and it worked better than anything I've ever bought. It was really good.
Yeah.
For checkbook program. Anyway, so and then so I had kids, and I stayed home with my kids, and I wasn't really quilting that much, or I don't remember. But anyway, Brian came home one day, and he said, "You need to go take a class in AutoCAD. You'd really like that." And it was in Windows.
Okay.
So the professor would say, well, if you want a line from, you type in the coordinates and you do this. And I was designing mariner's compasses that had 53 points. Or just some really weird number. Because you just drew a line from 0 to, here's your line, and then you'd rotate it 53, straight. You rotate it 53 times around, and the computer wouldn't complain.
Right.
Because they couldn't talk back then. And then you'd have a V and you'd do this. And so every time the professor told us a new skill, I was designing a quilt with it. And then
That is amazing.
it was a good way to learn it.
Right.
So because
Learn
it was
the program
fun.
or learn the quilting.
Well, the program.
Okay.
So, I had pieced some quilts.
Okay.
I'm sorry. At some point, I read a book about Amish quilts and started piecing
Okay.
quilts.
So you
and
did do some traditional
Yeah.
piecing.
I have them somewhere.
Okay.
I don't know where they are, but
They're in that box.
I have one over there that I pieced years ago.
Okay.
I haven't seen
It's
it.
still
There's
not
an Amish
quilted
one.
yet.
Still
I
not
quilted
quilted.
that by
So you
hand.
still have things that you need to work on, right?
Yeah.
Like we all do.
That's 30 years old. So anyway, then I started fusing at some point back in the 80s.
And did you fall in love?
Yeah, I liked fusing because I don't remember why. I just liked it better than piecing. So I started doing that. And then Melody Johnson, who dyes her own fabric, taught me how to dye fabric. So I started doing that. And if you dye your own fabric, it's really easy to fuse them because there's not stuff on the fabric that makes the Wonder Under
Not
or
stick.
your fusible not stick.
Okay.
So I've dyed all that. I don't know if you can see
Yeah,
that.
I've seen
But
most
that's all my
I'm going to put a
dark
picture. I
fabric.
took a picture of that as well. That'll be coming up. Yeah.
And then I keep some up here too. So now I design my quilts in Adobe Illustrator.
Okay.
And in the beginning you had to do all the math, but now Adobe Illustrator you can have it do the math in the thing. So like if I want 53 points, I just tell it to do a star that's 360 degrees divided by 53, and it does.
Okay. So then you guys moved from Chicago to Omaha when?
We started moving in 2017, and I think we're permanently here in like 2019.
Oh, so right about the same time we bought the store. That's awesome. Okay. Because we bought the store in January of 2019.
Yeah, and I don't remember exactly when we moved from Chicago to, we had an old sailboat, so we were going to sell our house. We rented an apartment in Kenosha. We moved out of the house. We had an apartment in Kenosha, an apartment here. Then we sold the house, and the lease ran out of the apartment in Kenosha, which we weren't using anyway. And so we moved here, because we have grandsons,
Okay.
and Brian likes to be around.
That's awesome.
So he was grumpy the whole 8 hours back to Chicago because he was leaving the kids. And then on the way back, he didn't want to stop and use the bathroom stuff. So at some point, I just said, I'm not coming with you ever again. I'm going to stay here in Omaha, and you can go back and forth all you want.
Okay.
So he quit doing that too.
Awesome. And you moved into the hot shops when?
July of 2017.
Okay, so right. Okay, perfect. So right about before you moved, so you must have moved back to Omaha in 17.
Well, we weren't here permanently.
Okay,
We would go back and forth.
but that's where you set up your machine then.
Yeah, so my machine's been here, and most of my stuff has been here.
So when you first started designing quilts, how did that work with your education of going to shows and teaching and stuff? How did that all like mix in together?
Oh, well, so when my kids were in first grade, Josh was in first grade, and Sam was in kindergarten, and I was doing log cabin quilts, but not squares, just different, interesting shapes that tessellated in a circle. Anyway, so I stopped in this quilt shop in Long Grove, Illinois, and they said, hey, we have a quilt class tonight on log cabins, and our teacher's sick. Can you come teach? And I was like, oh, okay. So I went home and I did a handout, and then I came back and I just started to, because I think that I had wanted to teach there. I think I might have brought some quilts.
Okay.
And they called me and said, okay, so teach. So I taught there. And then I was submitting quilts to shows a lot. Like the APQS only had one show at the time, the one in Paducah, and the Mancuso Brothers
Okay.
have like a bunch of shows. And so in 2000, I won 2 ribbons in, that was the year I won 2 ribbons in Houston and 2 in Pacific International Quilt Festival. And then I started teaching.
Okay.
Because quilt shows were noticing that I was winning ribbons. And so then I started teaching at quilt shows. And then, that's it.
What's your favorite part of the quilting process?
Well, really, I like the quilting. I don't like burying threads. I don't like cutting the quilt. I don't like binding the quilt. So I would say the fusing and then the quilting would be and the design.
Well, yeah, the
I don't know
design
what I
part.
like the best.
Right, but those are probably,
Yeah.
you kind of racked and stacked a little bit. We got your hierarchy of the fusing and the designing and the quilting, and everything
Yeah.
else is like not so much, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there something hanging? Oh,
Nope, you're
sorry.
perfect.
I'm seeing a space.
So you're talking to 2
Just
long
edit
armors
that.
right here. We're talking to two longarmers here, so that's
Yeah.
and when, and what brought Angela and Jake and I together is APQS, obviously, the love of the big, beautiful, amazing machine that can do, lots of good things, right? Big throat space, probably perfect for what you're doing for going and the auto advance for going back and forth.
Oh, yeah, I need that.
Right.
Because I don't mount a quilt like a normal person would. I've quilted 3 block quilts because I used to belong to the Chicago Modern Guild. And I'd say, hey, so-and-so's having a rough year, let's make a quilt for that person or something, and then I'll quilt it. And so everybody would make these beautiful quilts, and I'd quilt them, and it was very, very stressful. So now I won't quilt for anybody but me. So people who quilt for other people, I have so much admiration for you guys, because you know how to fix things. I don't know how to do any of that. So...
Well, that's awesome. I love the fact that you have a machine that the big machine here in the studio. People watch you. You bring kids in here, right?
Yeah, and I let them play.
Oh, that's just amazing. So what happens when kids come in? Can you explain that process?
Well, it depends on how old they are. If they're little kids, that's why I turned the long arm around so they could see it.
Okay.
Because I had it facing. There's a window in my studio, and people in the hallway can look in. And that's one reason that I think that they gave me this studio, is because I'm here a lot. I would be here today, even if you weren't here.
Okay.
I would come here for a while, and people just look in, and it feels a little bit like being at the zoo, but if I just ignore them I wait. But anyway, so when kids come in, there's no set time that I have to talk. I asked him once, and he said, just talk till I tell you that we're leaving.
Okay.
So I do that. And then, and Tim is the person who brings it. And so I have fabric hanging on the wall there. And so I tell them I dyed my own fabric, or Tim tells them, and then I start. And then I talk about, not little kids, but older kids, I talk about, I pour the dye down, the fabric, and then I show them the long arm. And right now I have a test, just some fabric on there with batting. And because I have the stitch regulator on,
right.
If I have enough time to turn the machine on, I will. And then I just let them play with it, little, like 1 or 2 of them.
Right.
But other than that, if I'm not doing that, I just demonstrate that it'll stitch when I'm moving the machine. It knows that I'm moving the machine, and it stitches. And if they're kids that are old enough that I think they've had trigonometry, I'll say, well, it uses Cartesian coordinates to figure out where it is, because it knows because of the wheels, and then their eyes roll over, and then they leave. So,
just the fact that you let people touch your machine is beautiful, because that's going to bring maybe somebody back to quilting, right?
Yeah.
And your studio is so bright and beautiful.
Thanks. And quilters do come in. Okay. And people come in a lot and say, oh, my grandmother quilts, or whatever. And I'm never offended by somebody saying their grandmother quilts. What kind of quilts did she make, or whatever. Quilters, I can tell when quilters come in, because they'll know that that's a long arm.
Right.
And so they'll start talking about that, and then we can talk about quilts. And a lot of people come in and they're just interested in what the machine is. So
it's an interesting piece of equipment for this aesthetics, right? For this whole building. Like, you're the only one here that has that.
Oh, there's another long armor.
Oh, that's right. But she quilts for others, right?
Yeah, she quilts, and she has hers computerized.
Oh,
that's the thing too. Everybody wants to know if this is computerized, and I just say no. I'm doing art quilts, so I drive it, and then they still insist that it's computerized because they don't get it. And my husband was the same way when I got mine. He'd say, because I showed him the back thing.
The pantograph?
Yes, thank you. And he said, is that how the machine quilts? And I said, no, I guide it, and I don't use the pantograph. So
right. I can see where people would probably look at the machine and say that the computers are inside per se, right? Because everything else, like what you see on manufacturing and things like that, people think that those are computerized. So that I can understand why they would think that is computerized.
Yeah.
Well, also, if they see her quilting close up, it's precise. They're going to think it was done by a computer anyways.
Yeah.
So they're not thinking that she's moving it that small and that precise.
That's true. And there are a lot of circuit boards in there, aren't there? Like 18 of them or something?
There's
You got the
7
lady right
circuit
there.
boards inside of a milli.
Oh, I was off by 10.
Yeah.
But still,
quite
that's a lot. That's a lot for all it's doing is moving the needle up and down. But it has to know when to stop and when to start.
It needs to know how to stop and start, yeah.
Yeah, so it's
And when we're changing direction and things like that, right?
Yeah,
Kind of that
yeah,
whole
yeah.
stitch regulator, that's what our industry leading stitch regulator is all about, right?
Yeah, and then there's some functions on it that you probably don't use. Like
yeah.
like the thread cutter.
We'll
You
just-
know, I do use the thread
You do
cutter,
that? Okay.
but
I just knew you had taken it off on your first milling, so yeah.
yeah. I'm trying to remember when I do. Usually, what I do is that thing where you take a stitch and then you move the head away,
Mm-hmm.
grab the thread and you move it back and then you pull it up, clip it. And when I teach free motion quilting on domestic machines at quilt shows, which is ironic because
Yeah.
I don't really do that much. But I don't want to teach on long arms because anybody that has a long arm knows more than I do.
I
Oh,
guess.
I doubt that.
No, I'm serious. I'm not being modest. I really do. Every time I load a quilt, it's an adventure, and I do different things, and the quilts always come out fine. So it isn't like it's
Beautiful.
complicated. I just got one of my quilts. I don't know which one. So when I had a domestic machine, or when I quilted, I started like pretend this is a quilt, and I'll start here. And then work this way, and then work that way. So I thought, and my quilts have a lot of circles, so I thought I'll not pretend it's a quilt. I'll just mount it, and I'll start quilting here. And I'll float it at the top. Somehow I floated it. I think I just pinned it. And so I quilted it from the center out, and it worked okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it on someone else's.
So do you still do that?
No, now I mount it. So even if the quilt's going to be like this, I just mount it like this.
And you start
I start up here.
and work your way down.
Yeah, and I leave extra fabric when I make the quilt. This one doesn't have a whole lot of extra, but I don't trim the quilt to the shape until I'm done quilting it.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of times, because I'm fusing my quilts and I build them on a piece of fabric,
Right.
so usually there's extra fabric at the top, and that's where I practice. And then also the sides, I don't practice on the sides because I don't want to. I don't know what that's called. I try to kind of quilt down this way. I don't do any stay stitching.
Okay.
That's not the right word.
It is.
Stabilization.
Is it?
Stabilization,
Yeah,
probably, yeah.
I'm very unstable.
Yeah.
And so my quilts are unstable. So I would start, like if this was a quilt, I'd probably start here, and then I just kind of work this way. Sometimes if it's off center, like pretend it's here, I'll kind of work there, and then, I don't know. I improvise. Whatever I feel like doing is what I do, and then I
that's a
just
good
deal
thing.
with it.
And they're spectacular. I mean, I can't wait till you guys see some of these pictures as we're putting them up around the
Thanks.
let me see. What other good questions do you have, Angela?
Now you want me to talk now?
I'm sorry.
I was just listening going, no.
Well, no, this
That's
has
fine.
been great.
Yeah, you probably need to look down. Jake wants us to talk about these.
Oh,
He's like,
Okay.
this is really cool.
well, this is
stunning. This is just
when I'm. Oh, I'll do
back.
my demo. Yeah. Oh, here's my artist certificate that I got off the internet because artists need to be certified. So, so this is called a flow snake, and it's a space-filling fractal, or a line. It's an equation that would fill an infinite amount of space, and I like math, and so I have a lot of math books that have design. I like using math to create a design. So, which my quotes are all mathematical.
I would say so.
So,
Definitely.
and then I took a workshop from Betty Spence, who's really a lot of fun. And she taught us how to do, these are technically called sun prints, but this room has no sun in it. I don't even have a window outside. I don't know what the weather is. So, this doesn't really need the sun. But what it needs is, you take fabric paint and you dilute it so it's very liquidy, and then you put it on the fabric, and then you put something, a stencil or vinyl or something that keeps it from evaporating, and wherever that thing is, the liquid moves to the area that's drying out, that's evaporating, and it takes the paint with it. So you can use any stencil, and it actually works the same way a stencil would. I can tell this one was, the holes in this stencil were where the dark green is.
Okay.
And so you could just really spray paint it, but this is more fun. And so this is a flow snake, and here, this is the actual line. I'll show you this if you want to. So here's a hexagon, and I've drawn a line from this point to this point on this hexagon, and then and then I took, like a hippie flower with 7, well, if you're paper pasting.
Right,
I could
paper
actually
pasting.
paper paste
So it's
this.
back to your first quilt, grandmother's flower.
That's true,
Yeah.
that's true. So so this makes a 7 shape, if there's, can you see, do I need to just leave it here?
I mean, it's really bright on the light.
Do you want me to start over?
No, you're good.
Okay.
Hold it up again and let's
Oh,
see.
all right.
Okay, you can see it better.
Okay,
held
so
up,
there's
yeah.
a 7. If you look, it goes from here to here to here to here, up there, over and down. So this point and this point are the same as this line from here to here. So this is normally, I believe this is a 6-inch hexagon, and then these are some other size that I can't remember, but this ends up being longer than 6 inches from here to here. So you have this, and then somewhere I've got, here's the shape. Here's the original line went from there to there, but this goes up and around, down like that, okay? So that's the first iteration, and then what I've done is it's not me, I didn't invent this, but you replace every one of these straight segments with this shape, and you get this. And so this has 7 times 7, so this has 49 lines in it. And then if you do it again, and this has whatever 49 times 7 is, it goes like that. And then you do it once more, and now it's 3 in the morning. And so I have this line, and I have a digital cutter, and I can have the digital cutter cut this out of acetate or mylar. Mm-hmm. And then, so I've made all these stencils out of this, and I've used different, this is the line itself, and then...
So you dye your fabric, put the stencil on it, and then as it evaporates, it goes away
Right.
from the acrylic
Except for you
on the
have to use
stencil.
paint. You can't use dye.
Okay, paint.
Because dye colors the fabric as soon as it touches it.
Okay, also
So-
good to know.
I think if I understand, this was a piece of white fabric that she put green paint on, and the dark green is the original color of the paint. This minty color is the bleed off. Is that true?
Yeah. Well, originally it all looked like this, and then it congregates.
It congregates. Okay.
Yeah, and
It's
so it
the
gets
opposite
darker.
of what I was thinking.
But this is the color out of the bottle.
Okay.
Or out of the jar. And this is the leftovers. And then these, when I did them in purple, so when I cut these on the Cricut, this line gives you have to put it into a container. I can't think of a better word. Otherwise you just get, see, this is the line itself. See that? From here to here is the line. Mm-hmm. This is what happens if you take that shape and you put it in a circle, and when I cut it on the die cutter, I get 2 stencils. This one, see how the circle goes all the way around here?
Right.
Yeah.
And this one is the top of that.
Right. So they would fit together and form a full circle.
Exactly. And I can fit them back in if I'm very stressed and I have nothing else to do. I can do that. So this isn't even good fabric. This is muslin that's not prepared for dyeing. I had it laying around because I have working walls that I put designer tech bulletin book. My whole wall in this studio is a big pinning wall.
Okay.
So I get
Yep.
really.
I'm gonna have pictures of that showing on here.
So I get really wide muslin, and I think that I got either 120 or 108, and then I ripped off what I didn't need. So I kind of printing on it. Whereas dyeing, I have to use prepared for dyeing fabric.
Okay.
It's good fabric. So this is paint. So it will come off if you rub it too hard. It's not in the fabric.
So then this one here, can we talk about this one right here?
Sure. So because I've designed them on the computer, I have that file in Adobe Illustrator, and I can, actually, if we turn it this way, it looks more like the other. I can't reach that to flip that down. But anyway, so what I did for this, I took the same shape as in the purple drawing. This is the same as this. But I just scaled it up and sent it to a blueprint company, to AD Tech here, and they printed out.
This one?
That'll work.
Okay.
So they printed this out for me. And this is, I have them print all my patterns for when I teach. And then I use Wonder Under fusible webbing, and I traced it onto the paper side. Wonder Under is a webbing on one side, paper on the other. I taped the paper and stapled it. And I get 7 or 8, if you get 7 copies, it's cheaper than getting 2.
Yes.
So I get 7, because I need 2, because I was wrecking one. Anyway, so I put the Wonder Under on, and I traced this line onto the Wonder Under, and then I ironed it onto a big piece of fabric. Back to this. So the blue is fused onto the turquoise, and the turquoise I dye just by putting dye in a jar with fabric, but this is painted with, it's dye. I hang up my fabric and I pour the dyes down. And so my original idea was to put this on a piece of fabric where the lines on the top were going this way, and then the other fabric would have that, but I didn't get around to that. Anyway, so then I fused this down. This is all fused, but then I decided to cover my edges. So I zigzagged.
Those are some tiny
This.
zigzags, dear. Lots of
Yeah.
patience.
So it took 3 days to cut the shape out,
Wow.
because I had to keep it flat on the table, because if I would have picked it up and done this, it would have fallen apart.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to cut. It was hard. I think I used I'm left-handed, so I could cut like this, but I couldn't cut this way. So I think that's when I started using a little rotary cutter. I tried a knife, because Jane Sassaman uses a knife. And then I just gave up and used the scissors. And there's some little undercuts here, but you can't really tell because I covered them. So, and then this took 3 days
It's just
to do that. So I will quilt this once I've decided what I'm going to do with it. I'm not sure if I'm going to embellish the middle or not. So it's just kind of sitting there while I decide. But I have the other half of this, because there's 2 halves.
It's right here. I tried to fold it up nicely for you.
So when I decide to put this on fabric, I will lay the background fabric down on the table, and I'll pin that to this pattern. And then I have a light box, and I'll just move the light box around and arrange this, and then move it just off in the light box enough to iron it. Because I don't think I can iron on top of the light box. I don't want to do that. So you can see it's got threads stuck in it. I mean, this is a mess. But
It is pretty cool when you pull it
Yeah,
apart.
so think about, this started out looking like this though, right?
yeah,
So-
yeah, it was the other half. And then the other thing too is the line from the start and the end of this. This is the end, and then if we go over here, this is the other side of it.
That's incredible.
Not counting this circle here, this line is originally 30 inches, but it ended up being, I want to say 1,200 inches. And so this is the way your brain is, this is like folding, because it's taking a line and kind of folding it around. And so this must occur somewhere in nature, this pattern. I haven't seen it yet, but it's like it gets caught on itself really easily because of the weird angles and stuff. And anyway, your brain is folded over and over and over because your brain cells have to be on the outside. I'm not a doctor, so I don't.
No, but you're
But
a phenomenal
anyway, so-
quilter,
oh,
that's for sure.
thank you.
So I got a question for you about your Millie. Are you a stitch regulator girl or a not stitch regulator girl?
Totally stitch regulated.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you use stitch regulator?
I do both.
You do both?
Yeah.
No, not me. I have to have a stitch regulator, otherwise I get stressed. So,
Yes, there is that, right? There's times that's why I think the both comes into play, right?
yeah.
Well, when it sounds correct, it calms you down, right?
Yeah,
The revving of the motor, or if you're not stitch regulating, not hearing the motor.
yeah.
revving.
Or the dinging.
The dinging, yeah, all that, the beeping from the.
Yeah. I don't
stitch
hear that
regulator.
anymore, though. I don't even know if mine beeps. I think it does, but I don't pay attention.
Yeah, I don't hear mine anymore either.
I don't either.
Like, we both have multiple going in.
Do you think
at
it
one
still
time.
beeps?
Probably does.
Really?
I think that's a safety feature that they have, and I will tell you as a long arm wrencher, it's a great feature, so people really realize that it's still on, that they have to turn it off.
Oh, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that we get to where we don't hear it anymore.
Right.
Other people walk in and go, "What's the beeping?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's just my long arm."
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. And Tim walked by earlier. When I first moved here, I had my long arm. Well, you guys did this to me too. I had the long arm facing, so I was looking into the room, and I had window light on my over my shoulder, and Tim and Ed would walk in really quietly, and then I'd look up and
We surprised her when we
startled.
walked in this
Yeah.
morning because she looked
and
up and all
apparently
three
I
of us
don't
were
even
there.
have to be stitching. I'm just kind of off in my own little. And they think that's very funny. And I think, well, one day I'll sew over my hand, and then you won't be laughing, will you? So when I'm really concentrating on a quilt, my studio is generally open to anybody that wants to just walk in. But when I'm working on a quilt in a lot of detail, and if I wear AirPods. Because I like to listen to music and stuff. And so I just lock the door. And I'm going to make a sign for that window that says, don't tap on the glass.
We actually have those, and I have one that says, "Don't tap on the glass, creativity happening."
Oh, that's a good idea. I want to put one that says, it startles the fish. So,
And we also have one that says, "Don't feed the longarmers,"
yeah. Oh, that'd be good.
unless you have
Yeah.
chocolate or wine.
Yeah, it's too bad I took my menorah down. I made a menorah out of big superior spool thread was the middle.
Oh.
And then glide thread was the bottom, the the little candles. Because I'm a non-practicing Jew, but I wanted a menorah for our open house. And one of the other, so the cool thing about this place is that all the artists, we wander around in each other's space.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes we collaborate, but Paula, who's a painter, looked and she said, I couldn't find my menorah that had LEDs.
Uh-huh.
So she said, hey, make one out of thread. So I did. I used a thread rack and I arranged the thread on it. It was over in the window over there. And then I was just putting yellow bobbins
Oh,
on,
how cute.
on top, for each color. And then when we had the open house, I put LED lights on top. So it technically was a real menorah
That's
because
awesome.
it had real lights. I read that on the internet to make sure. So I had that there for a couple days, and then Hanukkah's over, so I took it off. So I have this window that has Hanukkah colored ornaments. My husband's a Lutheran, so I just do whatever I want.
There you go.
So I have Christmas and Hanukkah.
And now you see why we love her when she comes in our shop. I'm just saying. We love when Robbi comes into the shop. I wish, one of these days you're going to have to say, hey, I'm coming over, at 3:30 on a Friday and a Saturday, and we'll have to, close down when we close down and have dinner together.
Oh, that'd be fun.
And have the brewery right there. We could do that. Because we've been talking about trying to work with the brewery, because there's beer stained yarn. I would love to do something with the beer stained fabric, but she started going down the rabbit hole, and I just listened to her. Lots of complications of acidity and things like that need to happen when you are staining fabric. So we were going to maybe potentially work on that someday.
But we could work on it as a palette. We could still use Procyon fiber reactive dyes.
Okay.
We don't
Sure.
have to waste beer. on that.
But what if you were
But-
using the mash? That's a product that
Oh,
they're
yeah,
not
they
using.
can.
Well, that's why I want to sit down with her and them and have a conversation.
I wonder if they bake bread out of that. There's a restaurant here that has a brewery, then they bake bread, and whenever we go out for dinner, we buy a loaf of their bread.
I don't know. I'll have
It's
to
really
ask them.
cool.
Right.
But and to speak to that, so when I came into your shop when you had just moved, I think you were a week old, I wanted to come in. It was in July, and so my husband and I had gotten a brand new RAV4,
Okay.
and so I said, oh hey Brian, I'm going to go to Fabric Bash. You want to come with? And he was like, well, I don't want to go. And I said, there's a brewery next door, and there's another brewery next door. So he's like, okay, I'm in. So he drove there, and then while I was talking to you, he had a couple beers.
That's awesome.
And then he said, oh, you're going to have to drive home.
I haven't been to
So-
either of the breweries next door.
We haven't, so we might, yeah.
We may have to fix that.
Well, their Cross Drain has a tasting room here,
oh.
but they don't brew here.
Yeah.
But so Brian was like, you have to drive home. So I drove home, and I thought, so I'm from Chicago, and I thought you were like the equivalent of Schaumburg, and is a west suburb of Chicago, like a northwest.
Okay.
And so to me, that's where La Vista is, which makes no sense because it's south. But
Okay.
I just had in my head, but Omaha's actually much smaller.
Right. Just
So
a
I'm
tad.
driving, and I wasn't, because it was your new space, and my husband's sitting there, and I'm driving the new car, and he's like, are you going to turn right? Because we were stopping at the printer place, which was by your old
Store.
store, yeah. So anyway, so my husband's sitting there, and he's like, are you going to turn right? And I said, I'm waiting till I get to the intersection, dear. And he said, well, I don't think you know where you're going. And I was like, No, but I'm not going to hit anything. Anyway, that was the only time I drove. Not because I was a bad driver.
No, but
It was supposed to be mine. But Brian likes it so much that he just drives it all the time. So for months, that was the only time I drove the car that I picked out. So, and he picked out a little red car. So you don't care. We have 2 little red. It's Nebraska. Everybody drives trucks here.
Yes.
So we traded in our sedan for SUVs.
But at least you got red.
We did. We got red because no, we're not Husker fans. but we like red cars. And if pressed, we'll say we're Husker fans.
So yes, if we talk about this, you can still see us, right, Jake? Okay. Promise me you'll bring this in when you get it done,
Oh, I will.
because I just love your work. And I send everybody down when people ask about what to do. I actually send them here.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, that's nice. Thanks.
Well, because this is such a unique, beautiful place. Like you could spend at least a couple hours here walking around.
Because there's, so I'm on the first floor, and then there's a second floor, and there a lot of painters. There's a jeweler here.
Mhm.
There's a little bit of everything. I think there's 80 different, it's either 80 artists or 80 studios. I can't remember.
And I know there's some quilters here. So you said the long armor, but there's also some piecers. I've seen some some stuff outside their
So
door.
Chris Kahn is on the third floor,
Mhm.
and she's more of a modern quilter. She does piecing, and then Marcia is next door to her, and she does quilting.
Oh, awesome.
So she's got it all
Digitized on
digitized.
the
So if people ask me about that, I'm like, I go up to the third floor and look at Marcia's.
Okay.
And then Lana moved in next door here, and she's also a quilter.
Awesome.
So, and then Kelly Sweet is here, and she does a lot of things. So is that 5? There's 5 of us. Oh, and Dorothy too. There's a lot of fiber people here.
Right. I would say you're not necessarily quite a quilter, but a fiber artist. For
Thank
sure.
you.
You are much more a fiber artist.
Thanks.
So.
No, I mean that.
I
It came
know.
out sarcastic.
No, you did not. No, it didn't. I definitely, your all of your fabrics in here are just beautiful, bright,
Thanks.
and I love that you fuse and quilt. And I love new and brilliant dense quilting. We were Angela and I were talking about how we're both kind of like quilted to death kind of people.
Yeah. And we're probably not as dense as some people are quilting.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But that thing on the quilt glide
Oh, yeah.
really helps.
It does help.
And I leave it on. Oh, so when kids come in, I'll say, see, when I stop moving, it stops quilting. But if I have quilt glide on it,
Keeps
just
on.
says, and I have to go, oh, never mind, hang on.
Well, thank you for spending your day with us
Thank
this
you.
morning. This
Oh,
is so
you're
much
welcome.
fun. We're, like I said, we will probably be back, guys, to visit with Robbi when we get some of this stuff done, because it's like too much fun.
Oh,
So,
thanks.
I mean, the store.
Yeah.
If you are in
Came out
Omaha, you
sarcastic,
you have to stop by here. Yes, we have a beautiful zoo, but this is much better.
Yeah, in the winter. And this is so we are one of the, I think we're number 2 or something.
For the zoo?
I think it was, I don't want to be untruthful, but I think it was in the top 10
For what?
attractions.
You guys here?
Yeah,
Shot
and
hot
not
dogs?
me personally.
No, but this is the building, this whole building.
Yeah.
Right, I can see why.
And this
Absolutely.
area is really being redeveloped. So when they
Very
started
much so.
here, there was really just empty factory buildings, I think.
Well, and then
And
they
now-
built the College World Series stadium.
Yeah.
And then a lot more hotels are coming in, and we've been blessed as a city to have the Olympic trials and the NCAA sports, and so Omaha's trying.
It is, and they rehabbed the building that's kitty corner to us, and that's where the crow string thing is, and the company that does websites, that if I could think of the name, you'd know them.
Like so?
Like WordPress.
Oh, WordPress.
got bought by somebody else, and they're there, and then the building across the way is being rehabbed, and we're becoming this area where there are all these murals on the building, so it's pretty cool. And we have e-bikes here now,
Oh,
or
awesome.
the rental bikes. You know,
Yes,
the bikes.
yeah.
We have those, and
the
the
scooters.
bus comes by. Oh yeah, and the scooters. So, not a fan of the scooters.
The bane of downtown cities everywhere.
Yeah. So, so this area, what they're trying to do is, Omaha has had kind of a brain drain because it's a small city, and kids live here and then they go to college somewhere else or here and then they move. So they're trying to make this area as an attraction for people maybe in their 20s and 30s. And we're really lucky because they've decided that the hot shops is kind of the centerpiece. They're going to promote the arts and have cool things here, and then there's some studios in some of the other buildings.
That's beautiful.
But this
I
building's
love all the
pretty
studio
cool.
space because this is unique.
Yeah.
You don't see it
Yeah.
in every city.
Right.
And it's really fun, and people move around a lot in the building. As you know, this is my fourth studio, and so everybody kind of moves around till they get into their niche, and it's really nice. And people people come down and borrow stuff from me. And, you know, I need a scissors. Do you have a scissors? And I'm like, well, all right. What are you gonna cut? And they tell me. I'm like, you left-handed or right-handed?
I'm not giving you my fabric scissors.
Yeah, I have a pair of like right-handed gingers.
It's
just
not
in
an
case.
easy yes or no answer.
No. And somebody needed, in the open house, somebody wanted an iron, and I'm like, what are you going to iron? It's like, here, and take this water, because I don't know, what kind of water you're going to use. And they brought it back, and I plugged it in, and it wasn't getting hot enough. And I thought, oh, this is the one that I thought died, and I replaced it, but it didn't die. And then it turned out they had just toned down it wasn't up at the highest setting.
There's different settings on irons, really?
Yeah, apparently. I just leave it on hot, and when I plug it in, it goes all the way to hot.
Yeah,
so,
Right.
Anyway, so it's fun, and people borrow things from
That's awesome.
other people, and people do stuff. And when I first moved here, Tim said, if you want to make the table smaller, they can cut it and make it, and just weld all the parts together again and stuff. So it's, are you going to show them the,
Oh, no, we'll
the
be okay on that.
stuff?
We'll do
Okay.
that. Yeah, that'll be good.
all right.
She has MacGyvered her machine quite a bit. I'm going to show pictures of it. So we'll talk about some of the
Okay.
MacGyvers. So, because every quilter MacGyvers their machine, right? Whether
do
domestic
they?
or long
Yeah.
arm.
I would
or,
think so, yeah.
That'd be interesting to compile, like have people submit, how to do their 100 tips?
Right.
Do
Yeah.
like 100, I don't know if you could name it MacGyver though. They might,
Yeah, they'd get in
Yeah.
trouble with that.
yeah, that would be a fun book.
Wouldn't that be a great
Yeah,
book?
or at least an article.
Oh, yes. Because I think she, well, if Angela, you want to go over, you can probably walk it over. She has, instead of so APQS has Auto Advance, where we have a foot pedal and an advance, the take-up roller. And she has taking a nurse's call button.
It may or may not come over here. You can unplug it if,
That's what I was going to do.
Yeah.
Plug somewhere down here.
Because she's moving back and forth so much, like what she was talking about, how she kind of works all over the quilt. She doesn't work in a more, what you would say, traditional from the top down-ish.
also, and you can't tell because I'm sitting here, but I'm only 5 feet tall. So I have a very nice drafting chair that I sit on, and I have to climb on it with a stool to get up. So I have a couple of them. And then, so I can't reach the pedals when they're on the floor.
Right.
So I have nurse's control buttons. See, here's to go forward. It's got like a 12-foot thing, and I marked them. So I can just sit on the top of the chair and do this. Before I had these, I just hit the pedals with the yardstick. So, and then if you drop the yardstick, I'd have to climb off the. It was a lot of exercise. So,
And she's using different kinds of audio splitters to get that to work. This one needs to go from stereo to mono to be able to have two
oh, it's the
different
other way.
channels.
This
Mono
is
to
stereo,
This is stereo,
and that's mono.
And this is mono, right? So we're going from stereo from our access in, and
And
these
Larry
are
taught me
mono.
how to do that.
So yeah,
he's
but most
one
of the
guys.
time, if you want to try this, you need to get stereo splitters if you're trying to put like a foot on the front and the back of your machine.
Or just call Jake.
Or just call us.
Yeah.
Angela, called Angela.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Not Angie, but Angela.
Do you have
Yeah.
those in your shop?
The splitters, no, but I do have a handheld system too that somebody
Really?
built for me.
Oh.
I just plug it straight into mine and it's on the side of my machine. But yeah,
Oh,
I had not thought about the splitters. I will probably go get a splitter now.
because you have it instead of the pedal.
I have it instead of the foot pedal.
Oh,
on
see,
one
all
of my
you need is
machines.
one splitter.
Yeah,
At-
and I
at
could
the
have it
box.
both. Yeah.
Yeah, I could actually probably do that.
That's what I did.
Because I have
But this
two
works for
pedals
you.
too. Yeah, and it's fun. And this was entertaining for like about an hour. Doing that. You know what I want to get for this is, they have those coils.
Yeah.
I'm easily distracted, so I haven't gotten one of those yet.
So wire management coils.
Okay. Yeah, and it's wire management.
Yep.
So these are from nursing, like if some old lady in a nursing home can't get out of bed now, because I'm kidding.
I'm sure you did not take some ladies.
No, I got it on it.
Oh my God.
And it would have been 2 of them too. That's what's really
There's 2 old people.
Yes. Who are stuck in their beds.
And we'll end with that because this is why we love Robbi to come in the store. We weren't going to revisit Robbi once again. I would love to hear some comments of what you have to say about this interview. Definitely we'll put a link to the hot shops. We'll put a link to the breweries we talked about. But I cannot wait to come back. And Angela, I'm sure, is going to be coming back again. And then if we meet you down at some show, that would be phenomenal too.
Yeah, don't come during a polar vortex.
I'm not planning on coming in December again. Maybe in the summer.
Yeah, or September's good.
September's good too.
October's not that bad.
It has snowed
October's
while I was
nice.
here.
It snowed yesterday.
That's what I'm saying.
or the
It
day
snowed
before.
while I was
Yeah,
here.
but it's all melted.
Yeah, it was. I let you experience North Carolina's idea of snow. It snows and it's gone. We don't
That's
shovel.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't, because I live in an apartment.
You know,
That's the best part of moving to Omaha. We live downtown. We don't have to go anywhere. We live in a building with a little grocery store in it.
oh, how cool is that?
So, and it used to be, it's the Brandeis. It used to be the big department store.
oh, okay, yeah.
So we live, so we got food court, little grocery store. It's kind of
That's
awesome.
really cool. Sounds great to me.
See, Omaha's kind of a cool little town.
Yeah.
So
It is, yeah.
It's a kind of a hidden gem of the world. So we
I'm
love
still
it.
thinking of polar vortexes over here going, yes, it's a cool little town.
It is, yeah. No, it's nice. And my studio is very close to the airport. When I lived in Chicago, you would leave 2 hours before your plane. You needed to get to the airport 2 hours ahead.
Right.
And then we needed to leave an hour before that to get to the airport. Because bad traffic, it could be an hour. Good traffic, half an hour. Here, 10 minutes. So if Brian's flying, if my husband's flying in, I wait until his plane lands. And then I go pick him up because it's so close.
Yeah.
So it's very nice. And we timed it once. It was 15 minutes from our door to the gate.
Yep.
There's another good point about Omaha.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for watching. Have a great time.
Bye.